All right. Mic check. Everyone?
Good.
You think this
Yeah.
picture is pretty bright?
Nah. You could turn it down a little bit, to be honest.
Yeah, because desktop and I don't have any ISOs set. So let me fucking-
Everything's working though. Can't ask for more than that.
Yeah, I'm on like a 2008 iMac, so the video settings are very limited.
Yeah, I'm maxing out the laptop I have right now. It works though.
True, true.
What's up, guys? Welcome to
one
the
second,
Cave
let me just,
Podcast.
Put this up here right quick.
This is the October podcast, and I'm kind of trying to make it a little eerie, Halloweeny vibe. So we're kind of diving into
Sorry.
the deep end of the rabbit holes, you know. And we got Vincent Fields. He is an author of the book about astral projection, and yeah, we're gonna go down in that rabbit hole. I actually have a lot of questions about that. I wouldn't say I've dabbled, but I'm familiar with the topic, and I think my friend Danny over here is as well. But just to give you an intro,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I go by Jerizi. We got Danny over there, and we got Patrick.
Yep. Yep. I'm Patrick.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah, and I mean, one question. I'm sure you've heard it so many times, but are we ready to dive in?
Yeah, we're ready. Let's do it.
I'm ready. I'm ready when you are, for
Let's
sure.
go.
Yeah. So, whenever I think of astral projection, it reminds me of like the times that I've experienced, which I knew to be named sleep paralysis. You know, that's kind of what I associated with when the way that it was described to me. Have you heard that a lot?
Well, there's definitely a relation. Sleep paralysis is essentially when your body's asleep and your mind is awake, and you're kind of like, seems like you're stuck, like in your body, like you're paralyzed, right?
Yeah.
The thing is that that state of the body being asleep and the mind being awake is like the prerequisite condition for astral projection. So essentially, the goal is to enter that state, and from there project from the body, and usually it happens almost naturally. Usually sleep paralysis, it's most common like when you kind of wake up spontaneously sometime during the night, and you just kind of find yourself like paralyzed, you're stuck, right?
Right.
But when you're you know, consciously trying to an astral projection, you will enter that state. You typically pass right through it, then the projection happens immediately after that.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Patrick.
No, I was just gonna say it's a little bit like mind blowing because another thing that's kind of associated with this that I always thought was pretty fascinating was sometimes, especially as I've gotten older, I have a difficulty distinguishing between what could be memories from dreams and actual memories. And then there's times when, let's say, like maybe like a week ago, I had like this memory where I was in a different room of my home, but I don't remember actually doing that while I was awake. So it's like, was that like I'm thinking to myself, could that have been that type of experience? And maybe I'm just doing it on, unintentionally, but it's interesting to think about.
Hey man, uh, memories. Uh, Memories are memories, and the thing is that we have experiences in multiple levels of reality. Here in the physical world, we have experiences during dreams, which is another, essentially another level of reality. We have experiences um, during, out of body experiences. A lot of people aren't consciously aware during them. We have them, nevertheless. And so, uh, our consciousness um, engaged in activities in multiple levels of reality, sometimes simultaneously, whether we're consciously aware of that fact or not. So, yeah, we can retain memories from any number of different levels of experience, and they will seem equally valid regardless of which level that memory comes from.
Right. Yeah, it's mind blowing to me though to think of whether I'm physically and intentionally experiencing what I remembered or if that's something that I did, while in like a sleep state or something. But yeah,
That's like deja vu, right? Pretty much.
it feels like it sometimes for sure. For me, it does.
Is there anything, Vince, in deja vu? Is that like a synchronicity between maybe like an astral experience meeting the physical experience, or is that just like a random phenomena?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've had experiences of deja vu, and essentially, it's like you're reliving a past moment in your life, only you haven't actually experienced that moment before. It's such an unusual experience.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's definitely more to it than just some kind of like, I don't know, brain fluke. And once you start getting deeper into your own consciousness and deeper into these other levels of reality that exist, and once you start kind of tapping into um, this higher consciousness that we're all actually a part of, but we usually just are unaware of it, um, things like that start to make more sense, and you start to realize how much more complex this whole reality is, and who we are is so much more complex than what we actually understand ourselves to be. And yeah, deja vu is just like it's just one small aspect of that, but it kind of indicates the larger picture, which is uh, mind blowing,
Mm-hmm.
essentially.
Absolutely. I think let's take a couple steps back because I think we're starting to dive in a little too quickly. But for those
Yeah.
that are listening, listening but have never heard of astral projecting or don't even know what it is,
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Vince, would you be kind enough to explain, maybe in simple terms, what it is? From my experience, from what I've heard, it's like is out of body experiences. So it's kind of when maybe what how Patrick said before, the sleep paralysis, where you get that sleep paralysis, but you get through it, and then pretty much you're looking down at your sleeping body, and you're like, "Oh, there I am," and you just think about where you want to be in a way. See, this is where I'm not too familiar with about it, but you could just, in a way, travel. I don't know, it's places or different time. Not sure there, but yeah, can you explain that real quick, please?
Yeah, for sure. Um, the key term that you said is out of body experience, and it's a type of out of body experience, and you can consider there to be different types of out of body experiences. And so,
Hmm.
astral projection is essentially an out of body experience in which your consciousness projects from the physical body, it enters the astral dimensions. It
Gotcha.
essentially enters higher dimensions of reality that exist beyond the physical world. And you can kind of consider this system of reality to exist in an entire spectrum. And the
Mm.
physical dimension is essentially the base level of this spectrum. And once you have an out of body experience, you shift or you project into these higher dimensions um, within the spectrum. That's basically what it is. And
And would you say the spectrum is like our physical world, like what we live in every day, what we touch, feel, taste, kind of thing?
the physical dimension, this physical world that we experience on a daily basis, is the base level of the spectrum. So it's like
Base level.
the
Okay.
lowest rung.
Got you.
So beyond that, um, you start to enter higher and higher levels or dimensions
Okay.
of reality. So the physical dimension can be considered the lowest dimension in this system of reality. So, you can you'll hear about higher dimensions and lower dimensions in relation to out of body experiences, lower astral dimensions, higher astral dimensions.
Mhm.
But all of these, even the lower non physical or astral dimensions, are still higher in frequency than the physical dimension. So the physical is
Absolutely.
like the base, right?
Right, right. Okay, that makes sense now.
Vince,
Well, thank
how did you get involved with astral projecting and lucid dreaming?
Man, when I was 14 years old, I stumbled across a website about out of body experiences, and that was my first time learning about this concept. I was just like blown away.
Mm-hmm.
The possibility that this could be real, and I wanted to do it, and I found a technique, and I went hard at it for almost a week. In less than a week, I was successful. I the out of body experience, and uh, I just kept at it from there, and I've been doing it ever since.
So this is something that you heard of, and then you learned the technique, and then you eventually had an experience, opposed to having an experience and then trying to find out, oh, what was that kind of thing? Would you say?
Right? Yeah.
That's cool. That's
But
interesting.
I mean that is actually also an interesting question, because once you have these experiences, um, you start to realize that um, it may not be the first time. And so
Hmm.
what I mean is, a lot of
Interesting.
times, we'll have dreams and we'll remember dreams, but there is a difference between a dream and an out of body experience. And over time, with experience and practice, you start to pick up on these subtleties, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so after a while, you look back on some past memories, and you start to realize, like, these probably weren't dreams that I had even before I started this practice. But uh, and the thing is, like, as kids, children have like a natural inclination to having these experiences, right? And
Mm-hmm.
typically, as we get older, um, we kind of, I don't know, these natural abilities kind of shut down in a sense. So, especially like as kids, we're definitely more prone to spontaneous out of body experiences.
Right.
It's interesting.
So
You know,
go ahead.
go, no, so I mean, what you were saying is, I like how you were saying, talking about dreaming. You mentioned that, and a couple years ago, and I've done this on different occasions, but a couple years ago, I did try. I was doing it more constantly, and what I was doing is, I I was logging my dreams. So I would wake up as soon as I had a dream. I would wake up. Put I didn't have a notebook, so I put it, enter it in the notepad in my phone, and I was doing that every time. And I think what's interesting, I mean, and I'm just speaking from my experience. I'm not. I'm just kind of piggybacking on from what you said. It made the dreams much more surreal, to the point where I started controlling what I wanted to do in the dreams. I don't know, and maybe just that simple fact of writing the dreams down, to where, I mean, even to this day, I can remember them perfectly just by reading the description.
Mm.
And but during that time, it was helping me, when I would get into the dream world, I guess you could say, just have more control of what was around me and what I wanted to do. So just adding on to what you were saying.
Hey, dude, that is 100% true. In the times that I have been pretty dedicated with my dream journaling, those have been the times where not only my dream recall has been the highest, but also lucid dreaming has been essentially the strongest. And yeah, that's definitely something I recommend to anyone who wants to get into lucid dreams or even astral projection, because it's all interrelated. It's all connected.
It is, huh?
And yeah, for sure.
That's perfect.
Have you
That-
found
that's
yourself
perfect.
have you found yourself like trapped in like any of those states? Like, kind of like a dream within a dream?
Like Insidious.
A dream within a dream. This is actually a common experience for, I mean, even for me, just because my astral projection and lucid dreaming practices on a daily basis, but for others too who are engaged in these practices, there's something called a false awakening. And so essentially, you wake up, but you're still dreaming, but you think you're awake. And these can
Yeah,
be
that's
kind of
happened to
like
me a lot of times.
uh,
Like it's
Sure.
it's a little bit like, I guess like maybe like the first few times when you experience it, it's, I don't know, I would say like it's a little bit frightening, you know? Because you're like thinking in your mind, it's like you're waking up from a dream and then you really wake up. And I don't know, for me it was
And I
kind
could
of a
add
tough
on,
experience.
like I've had dreams where my phone's ringing, like it starts ringing, and in real life it's actually ringing, and then just the two
Yeah,
guess
that's weird.
worlds were just connected together at the same time. It was pretty cool, I'll say.
So I'm
yeah,
curious.
for sure.
There's astral projection, there's lucid dreaming, there's remote viewing, correct? Are they all the same? Are they different levels?
Yeah, they're not the same.
Mhm.
They're similar, and they're all kind of connected within, I guess you can say, the stream of our own consciousness, right? But they are different levels of experience, different realms of experience, in a sense. And so, like I mentioned before, astral projection is typically when your consciousness enters the astral dimensions, these dimensions of reality that exist beyond the physical world. And the main difference between that and a lucid dream is that typically a lucid dream is um, an experience within subconsciously created reality, right? So it's more of a subjective level of experience, whereas the astral projection is more of an objective experience where these astral dimensions exist beyond your own mind. Whereas in a lucid dream, you're typically experiencing manifestations and creations of your own deeper levels
Right.
of mind.
Interesting.
And with remote viewing, that is, it's more of like a psychic type of experience in which you are gathering information from the physical dimension, right? And so this is like a common misconception that a lot of people have with astral projection or out of body experiences. They expect you to, um, maybe they want you to get some kind of information from the physical world, but these experiences don't take place in the physical dimension. They're beyond that. And remote viewing is more of a psychic type of experience where your mind can access information from this physical dimension. And like I said, astral projection take place beyond this physical world. So it is a misconception. I hear it all the time. People say, well, if you can have an out-of-body experience, then come to my room and read these numbers that I wrote down on my dresser, right?
Right.
but you're tapping into higher levels. And honestly, once you start to tap into these higher and higher dimensions, nothing compares. Uh, Nothing in this physical world compares to these higher realms. It's like pure heaven bliss, and we don't experience that here in this physical world. So just the idea of, I don't know, just the desire to kind of put around your neighborhood or spy on your neighbors, uh, it doesn't even, you know, there's no desire for that, because
Right.
the experiences in these higher dimensions are so far beyond that.
Right, right.
There's no comparison.
There's more meaning to it than just checking out what your neighbor's doing or whatever. It's like, no, there's
Right.
you gotta find kind of when you're going on a nice trip, if you know what I mean. You're trying to find that meaning, that
Yeah.
lesson. So maybe that's the same thing with you're mentioning with the astral projection. You're trying to find an answer of some sort.
Right, right. I hate to compare the two, but man, I do from my psychedelics experience, I've had an experience where I went into this vision, and there was this fairy that opened up a dimension, and she just kept folding up dimensions and opening up different portals, and my brain was I was mind blown. I'm like, I don't even have the capacity to understand what you're showing me, but thank you. But then I took that back, and I'm like, man, there's things out there that we can't even imagine and we can't even comprehend, which goes back to what you said about a lucid dream being built on our subconscious, and an astral projection being something kind of more ethereal and above that, to where you won't even, like, whatever I wrote down on in your room doesn't even matter, because there's things out there that you can't even fathom.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like, do you want to go spy on your neighbor taking a shower, or do you want to like, do you want to uh, learn the secrets of the universe? You know, like,
It was the meaning of
Right, for
life,
sure.
kind of thing.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well,
yeah, man.
and
I
I
mean,
since this is something that you practice regularly, what have been like the major benefits of it for you, if any?
yeah, that's a good question. Well, there are the intellectual benefits. You can consider, the things that you learn during these experiences, more of an intellectual understanding of the universe, of life, of yourself, of the nature of reality, right? But it's not just an intellectual thing, because this also influences, your beliefs and your thoughts and your actions, and so it has like an overall effect. Or I've had experiences in higher dimensions, and I come back into my body. I'm still like vibrating with like this energy, like of bliss, like this higher energy, and it stays with you, and it kind of like transforms you in a way. It's like you tap into these higher levels of reality and these higher energies, and they kind of like integrate with you in a sense. And yeah, like I said, it has this overall effect in your life, where it's not only an intellectual thing, but it affects how you interact with others, how you perceive others and yourself, and your life, and everything.
Yeah, I feel like
Wow,
there'd be
it's amazing. It
some
sounds really
ripple,
deep.
like ripple subtle effects everywhere. Having like a
Have
crazy
there
experience like that, you know.
have there been any like for lack of a better word, like negative experiences, or
Hmm.
some that were just, I guess, maybe traumatizing, or in any capacity?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, Especially in the beginning of my practice. Typically, um, in the beginning of anyone's practice, you will project into the lower dimensions, and over time, with practice and development and experience, you start to access higher and higher dimensions. And so essentially, Lower dimensions can be considered more negative or at the best neutral dimensions, whereas the higher dimensions can become more like heavenly and blissful and transformative, right? So, yeah, I mean, right off the bat, at the very beginning, was leaving my body. I was projecting, and then there would be these shadow beings. It's like waiting for me, and these alien type beings that just they resonated with this energy that just felt evil, for lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, the thing is,
Yeah.
these higher dimensions, it's not just like this work, but you have a type of connection with your environment and with other entities and with higher consciousness. It's almost like a psychic uh, tuition or a psychic knowing, and you just kind of absorb uh, information and knowledge in a way that we don't do this physical world. So when I say, for example, I left my body, I was surrounded by these alien type entities. They gave off this really negative energy that was almost evil. Well, it wasn't just me, like, I don't know, being afraid of how they looked. And I was afraid. But it's like you actually experience the energy of these other entities. And this goes for negative entities and these higher dimensional, you know, we can say enlightened entities, where you will encounter them, and it's like your heart explodes with bliss,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the most incredible experience you've ever had in your life. And so it goes, in all levels. So, over the years, there have been the negative experiences, but most predominantly have been the positive experiences, which is why I practice this, because, these handful of negative experiences, um, they don't compare with not only the amount of positive experiences, but um, I guess overall effect that they have had in my life.
Wow. Yeah, that's super impactful.
That's awesome.
It really is. It really is, just to know how this technique has helped change you. And that was going to lead to my question of why, but you kind of answered it there, saying, you just the experience you get and the impact that it has made in your life. Seems like it's made it for a positive, and that's good. That's great. I mean,
So I'm sure some of these
Sure.
lessons and these experiences that you go through. I mean, well, first of all, is astral projecting a practice that you practice every day? Is it a daily practice that you do?
Yeah. So, in the beginning, I would make an effort and a consistent effort to do this every day, or at least to try every day. But over time, it starts to become second nature. And eventually, these experiences happen spontaneously. Like you don't need to try anymore. Or, you wake up and you kind of just instantly slip into the state. Like I said, it's second nature. So, in the beginning, I would invest sometimes a couple hours a day
Mm-hmm.
to try to induce these experiences. And like I said, now it's kind of just like an instant thing. Over 22 years, obviously there will be some development and progress, but yeah, it is. The thing is, once you do this and once you start this practice, I can't imagine like turning your back on it.
Yeah, that's what I'm about to
Because
say.
yeah.
Because yeah, I was gonna ask if if you have an experience. Let's say last night you wake up this morning, right, and you had a crazy astral projecting or an outer body experience, that you try to find meaning you try to understand and you try to like decipher the meaning of, do you go back that night and then pick up where you left off, or do you just kind of like sit with that and try to figure out what that experience meant? Like how does it work? Do you just kind of pick up where you left off, or does it kind of start randomly when you get into those states?
Well, in the beginning, in the early days, it was kind of random. I would just leave my body and I would go exploring. And I had no particular motive or goal, just to see what's out there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But for a little while, I started to realize like I need to kind of focus my practice and my intentions, and so I would make goals. I would set goals, and so for each projection every day, I would go into it with a particular goal in mind, and so I would leave my body, and then I would try to achieve that goal. And sometimes that would happen the first try, and sometimes it would take days or weeks, months, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But what I found is that having a game plan for your practice and for your experiences helps to kind of maximize what you can gain from these experiences.
Interesting.
So you don't just approach it just to approach it. You
Right.
develop some kind of plan. And
Dude, you're a professional at this, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can go out there and mindlessly wander, but you're not going to get much out of that experience. And a lot of times, those would be experiences where I would encounter negative entities, right? But when I
right.
focus my mind and my intentions on a higher goal, then those have been my most profound and transformative experiences by far.
That's
When
deep.
you're in that state, is it like visually, like what we're seeing now, or how does it appear to you when you're
Yeah,
projecting?
well, it depends on your state of consciousness and what level, what dimension you are projected into. Because like in the lower dimensions, your vision can be almost kind of blurry, right? And if that's the case, and you need to strengthen your awareness and your consciousness. There are techniques that you can do that. And so like if I was in that state, I would project from my body, and the environment would be kind of blurry. Maybe my movement would be a little like slow or sluggish, and I learned some techniques that I would use to heighten my state of awareness, my consciousness. Then that would instantly sharpen my awareness, sharpen my vision. My movements will become more free, and in the higher dimensions, I mentioned this. There's no comparison to what you see there and to what we see here, and the thing is, there's kind of like a translational process, because being grounded in this physical body, in this physical world, we rely upon physical concepts, like concepts that we have learned during this life to make sense of our experience, right? So these higher level experiences kind of need to be filtered through that, for us to have some kind of comprehension of what's taking place.
Right.
So, the thing is this: when you're out there experiencing these higher dimensions, it's a lot different from when you come back and you remember it. And I guess that's all I can say about that.
That's probably why it's so easy to
Yeah.
forget, right? It's because it's so hard to translate and filter through the human experience that, like, you forget the translation because it's so abstract to us. That's interesting.
it's like a foreign
Right.
language to our
Yeah.
minds. Yeah.
So, Vince,
With-
do you think the astral realm can be mapped?
That's a hard one. You know, I've read there are 7 astral dimensions, there are 10, 11, and I kind of think that's nonsense because my experience, the reality is that it's so much more complex and so much more interconnected. You can shift from one dimension to another so subtly that there's no way to really map that. Even just a change of like your emotional state or your thought or your intention can instantly shift you into
Yeah,
a
yeah,
completely different dimension, you know? And
yeah,
how are you going to map that? You know?
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Okay,
You know,
but here's something that I will say. Uh, there, there are characteristics and qualities of different dimensional levels in a general sense, right? So you will be able to discern whether you're in a lower dimension or
Mm-hmm.
kind of a middle level neutral dimension or a higher dimension. That certainly, but to actually map it as in like I'm in this one particular dimension, I don't know about that.
Huh. Interesting.
speaking of kind of maybe mapping and and you mentioned earlier too how when you have a purpose, you seem to go into those higher
Dimensions.
dimensions, those higher realms. Maybe that's the wrong word to say, but
That's right.
um,
Yep.
and same thing. If you just if you wander without any purpose, you tend to go into the lower ones. Let me ask, and this just kind of popped into my head: can it be that because you have that purpose, those entities that you had mentioned before, they're like, okay, we want to help you out, and we want to, guide you to where you want to go. But if you're wandering endlessly without even planning, without doing anything, could those lower entities just be trying to
Prey on you,
distract
kind
you
of.
from where you're trying to go? Yeah, exactly, preying on you because they see, oh, this guy's a. I mean, they're probably thinking this
He's a
guy doesn't know what
foreigner.
he's doing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a foreigner
he's
here.
entering a world that he's not aware of. Yes, exactly. Can and could the possibility be of them maybe like taking advantage of that?
Sure, definitely. In my experience, there are entities out there that, you know, they prey on, you know, projectors and especially experienced ones,
Hmm.
and they feed off of fear. And you know, some people will deny their existence. Some people claim that it's just a manifestation of your own fears. But the thing is this: I've had experiences, I've had negative experiences provoked by my own fears.
Right.
And I've encountered entities that I had no expectation of. You know, when I first started this practice, I was very open minded, I was very optimistic. I didn't expect the majority of these negative encounters. But the thing is this: these astral dimensions are no different from this physical world. In fact, they're like an amplification of it. So here in this physical world, you know, there are good people, there are bad people. There's a whole range of different experiences, and that's amplified in these non-physical dimensions, right? And so, you know, some people claim that there's nothing to fear, right?
Hmm.
And any negative encounter um, is essentially your own fault in a way, like a conjuring of your own fears, and that has not been my experience. I don't think that is uh, wise to propagate because, well, I mean, you're gonna drop off your child in, you know, a dangerous neighborhood where there's drive-by shootings every 5 minutes, and you're gonna say it's all in your mind. I mean, there's no difference because
No, no, no.
it's
That's
Yeah.
right.
reality. It's a different level of reality, but it's
Right.
reality. And it's, I
Right.
mean, the thing is this: lucid dream, yeah. These experiences, are generated from your subconscious mind. But there are ways to distinguish lucid dreams from astral projections, and you know, my guess is that the people who claim that there are no negative entities or real valid negative experiences to be had in these other dimensions, there have not actually had the experiences, or are not actually maybe I don't want to say that full of bullshit altogether, but you know.
I hear you. But I mean, to say that there's no negative entities, there's only positive. I mean, I would say it's a pretty, I wouldn't say ignorant thing to say, but it's just in everything in this world, and I know even in the spirit world, there's got to be a balance of everything. It's a yin and yang, man. That's just how it's the balance of everything around us. So, I mean, to those people that say that, no, like, you're right. They either haven't experienced it or they haven't dived deep enough to see that, hey, though that does exist. So,
Right.
Sure,
Just to
sure.
add on to what you're saying, Danny, just like you're saying, it's you can't know one without the other, right?
Right.
How can
Right.
you know the good when you don't know the bad?
exactly.
So
So to differentiate,
Yeah, or
we
maybe they've gotten lucky, you know.
yeah,
Yeah, that too.
being watched. Got a guardian. So we differentiated lucid dreaming, astral projection, and remote viewing. Mainstream media, specifically Doctor Strange, their depiction of astral projecting, where he's in his body and then his spirit comes out and he's floats around kind of like a ghost. Does that make you sick to your stomach, or is that an accurate depiction of what astral projecting is? And if so, what movie gets it right, gets it on point?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say that's inaccurate. I mean, when you're out of body, there's no walking, there's no gravity, right? There are no like actual muscles, right? The laws of physics are completely different, right? And so, traveling and moving while you're out of body is essentially a matter of your mind, right? So, for example, you float out of your body, and you want to fly through your window. Well, just that thought will essentially propel you, just with the intention through your mind. So that's essentially how movement works. And so yeah,
Wow.
floating, flying. I've not once have I ever walked or ran during an out of body experience, because it's not how it works. There's no gravity in these higher dimensions. So, I sometimes I hear experiences and people say, I left my body and I walked out of my room and I turned the doorknob and I opened the door. That's not how it works. You fly through the door.
right. Wow, that sounds cool though. You just
That's interesting, because I'm sure you've heard of the new. This is kind of the new word on UFOs, is that they're not interstellar beings, that they're interdimensional beings now, and that these UFOs, they propel, kind of like you said, like with their mind, but to be translated into the physical realm, we kind of see them as, like a disc-shaped anti-gravity ship instead of a more interdimensional mind attention directed gravity propulsion. Something like that. I don't know. I try.
I get what you're saying. For
Okay,
sure,
cool.
for sure. Well,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I get it too.
I can't speak particularly on UFOs, but I've had countless experiences with aliens during my out of body experiences, and so from my own experience, these entities that we consider aliens. So, for example, gray aliens. I've encountered them countless times during my astral projections, and I can say for sure that they operate, they exist in these higher dimensions, and whether they're kind of like us. So, for example, we primarily exist here in the physical dimension, but we have the ability to tap into, to access other dimensions, whether that's their situation or maybe some of them are actually primarily based in these higher dimensions. Maybe they can kind of come down into this one. What their situation is, I'm not exactly sure, but you will encounter these entities in these other dimensions. And I mean, I've had UFO encounters myself here in the physical world, and yeah, I've considered what you said too. I've done a lot of research into aliens and UFOs, and I've had the thoughts that perhaps they're not just physical spacecraft. You know what I mean?
Right. That's fucking mind.
It kind of seems like an individual who is practicing in astro projection and things like that, and also has like a better understanding of the different realms and dimensions, maybe more capable of, or maybe more aware of those types of events happening or recognizing them.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my first physical UFO sighting happened after I started my astral projection practice and after I started encountering these entities in my out-of-body experiences. And I do think there is a connection. And there are some pretty interesting connections with other individuals. So, for example, a pretty famous author on the subject of alien abductions and UFOs is Whitley Strieber. In one of his books, he explains how these aliens, so these experiences, his abductions, started allegedly through physical abductions, but then these aliens eventually taught him how to have out-of-body experiences and start to access these like spiritual type of abilities that we all have. So there's some pretty interesting correlations there.
There is.
Yeah, that's
Do
insane.
you think then, with that being said, that this technique is something that was maybe taught to us from aliens, to our ancestors, and just something that was
Like a
then
gift.
passed generation to generation? Yeah, like a gift from the gods, I guess.
Well, what I think is that what I know actually is
Damn.
that this is it's a natural phenomenon. It's a natural process, and it happens every time we fall asleep. And you can know this. It's not just a belief, but you know this after experiencing it for so long. It's like, do you know that? I don't know.
Let's go a little deeper. Do you think, since it's natural, you think we were created like that on purpose?
Well,
You don't have
most
to.
natural. What is most natural is that this process takes place without our conscious
Right.
awareness.
Okay.
And so the key is to introduce that conscious awareness into the process, and then you go along for the ride and you see what's actually happening kind of like behind the scenes. And so I think what is most natural is for this all to be happening behind the scenes. But so once we introduce our consciousness into the mix and we're aware of these experiences, that's when this whole new realm of experience opens up to us. And I do think there is a design to that. I think that there's a reason why we usually are we're not aware of these experiences. I think the purpose of this physical world um, is kind of to be limited and separated from this higher spiritual reality that we actually kind of like come from, you know?
Hmm.
And so I don't know if you want to consider it like cheating when we consciously enter these higher states and experience these revelations of who we really are beyond this physical world, because in a sense you can consider that this kind of um, you know it, this is what I think. We're here in this world
Yeah.
uh, to learn and grow, um, and experience these challenges, and kind of like to temporarily forget who we truly are as higher spiritual entities. And these experiences allow us, these astral projections and higher level experiences allow us to remember who we actually are
Right. Right.
beyond
Right.
this physical body.
Right. Because it's like how it has been said. We're not human beings with spirits. We are spirits inside of a human body, in a way. And this is just our vehicle. The vehicle that our spirit is being a, being able to move through.
Those
In
are
a
a
sense.
UFO.
Yeah, it's our UFO. Exactly.
So
Sure, definitely.
you mentioned that the sleep paralysis state was the prerequisite of astral projection, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty much, definitely. Uh-huh.
Is there other ways to bypass to get into that state other than sleeping? Like people get knocked out and get into the outer body experience, near death experiences, drugs. Like are there other ways to shortcut to that without sleep?
Exorcisms.
Yeah, like yeah, what is it called? Possessions?
Okay. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is DMT experiences, psychedelic experiences. I think that it is possible for your consciousness to access higher levels of reality that are valid, objective levels of reality through these substances.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm sure there are other ways of tapping into these other levels of reality. But my main experience is um, the classical out of body experience in which the body falls asleep and your mind stays awake and you project. Um, and you know, I can't
From
really comment on what I haven't experienced myself.
Okay.
Okay. It's fair.
From and so since you started with I guess you could say the um
Method.
sleep method of astral projection, and now you mentioned DMT, and that's something that I'm familiar with. Jarizi is familiar with as well, since we've gone on journeys together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what would you say would be I wouldn't say the most vivid, but which would the DMT take you to that higher level of consciousness? I guess you could say that higher end of the spectrum compared to the sleep method, or are they relatively about the same, or vice
Well,
versa?
the first thing that comes to mind in comparing DMT experiences with a standard astral projection is that you don't have the level of control with a drug induced experience.
Facts.
Gotcha.
If you naturally project from your body,
That's
um,
crazy.
you can direct your experience, depending on your level of development and your abilities. So for now, um, you know, in my current state of development, I can project to a lower dimension a kind of neutral, medium level dimension, a higher dimension. I can uh, encounter, uh, I can meet with my deceased relatives. I can meet with other aspects of my higher self. There are
Right.
a lot of things you can do. But during these DMT experiences, you're kind of just thrown out there. And I mean, I've never had the experience myself, but just from my research, you don't have a lot of control. And so you're kind of just going along for the ride, hoping
Okay.
for the best. And sometimes it's not the best experience. Sometimes it is,
Yeah.
you know.
You know, going back
I,
to like you
I
said,
can.
you become prey to the entities that are out there looking for tourists. You know.
Yeah, yeah,
So
and I can say from experience too, because I've had that lower end of the spectrum, the lower vibrations, where I was having. I don't want to say it was a bad DMT trip, but because my, like you mentioned, my thoughts and my emotions started taking over instead of just allowing my spirit, to release and let go. Your consciousness just definitely takes you somewhere dark, and it's somewhere to where, and in an instant like that, it's not just like a slow transition. Just one simple thought of something, I don't know, that happened in your life can drastically. So I mean, I I can't say I've had a typical astral projection, but I've definitely had my DMT trips, and it's interesting to see how the two have similarities.
yeah,
But one thing I would like to experience, what you said, is the astral projection, is to have that control, being able to, maneuver, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it's something that you can build on too, and eventually go into higher levels of consciousness as well.
that's so cool that you say that because
Yeah,
that
for
reminds
sure.
me of this like parable I heard of the hippie and the monk. It was like a monk. He was at a monastery with this hippie, kind of teaching him some meditation techniques. And the hippie was like, "Oh, hey, try some mushrooms, try some acid, try some DMT." And the monk would take him, and he'd have fun, have some trips. And then at the end of it, the hippie asked the monk, "Oh, what was your favorite?" And the monk replied, "Oh, meditation. I still think meditation's better than anything that any of those drugs showed me." Which is, man, like I bow down to that, man. That's like superior status to me. That's cool.
And that's the truth. That's the truth. And
Hmm.
the thing is, astral projection is induced through meditation. So it's essentially meditation taken one step further.
Mm,
So it's definitely on that same level there.
Hmm. Okay, so I,
interesting.
I
So
used to
it
try
is.
to meditate. I would time myself for 5 minutes. The next day, I'd go to 10 minutes. Next day, I go to 15, 20, 25. Try to work my way up. And I feel like I would, somewhere around the 30, 35 minute mark, I would just fall asleep. You think that's kind of like the important moments I really focus to get into that grounds of, that prerequisite state that you were mentioning? Like that falling asleep,
Yeah, well,
awakeness, middle ground.
and in, right, and an important to consider is when you are attempting this, because if you're doing it at night, it's a lot more difficult than if you do it, say, in the early morning, because you want your mind and your body to be in the most ideal state to achieve this. So, like at night, okay, so your body may be tired, and maybe your body can fall asleep pretty easily, but your mind is also tired, and it's a lot more difficult to maintain that awareness as your body falls asleep. And in the early morning, let's say a couple hours after you usually wake up, your body is still deeply relaxed, so it can fall back to sleep fairly easily. Uh, but your mind has also gotten a decent amount of rest, so it's a lot easier to keep your mind awake as the body falls back to sleep. So doing it in the early morning is the best time.
Wow. Never knew that. I thought it was at night. I thought you were gonna go with nighttime was the best time.
Yeah.
Should have lost
So,
money on that
And
I mean,
one.
typical. You think,
my
I mean, you
first out of
think you're
body
going to.
experiences were at night.
Mhm.
But the thing is, they would take up to an hour to induce the projection. And, a couple weeks after I started, I found a new technique, which was in the early morning, and immediately that cut the time down from an hour, or 45 minutes to an hour, to like 15 minutes, and I just never looked back. It was like, all right, only morning now because yeah, it's just so much easier.
Found the shortcut.
All right, I got one more question I wanted to ask, and this is my personal question. I know astral projection up until recently was kind of looked at more in like the it's thrown in the bucket of more witchcraft, right? Would you say it's kind of like that? And until like New Age made, there's like a spiritual movement and meditation, astral projection, and visualizing became common practices that people use for self improvement. But I did go down a rabbit hole um, of magic with a K, like black magic stuff. And they would do spells and try to like evoke beings from other dimensions. Would this be a way of, like, with these entities that we talk about like the benevolent entities and the alien entities, could you work with these entities to cause manipulation in this physical realm from your experiences?
Well, I have no personal experience with like conjuring entities to try to manipulate the physical world,
Mm-hmm.
and I would not recommend that at all.
Mm-hmm.
There are entities out there that can have an effect in this physical world for sure, and there are entities out there that they just like mischief. I mean,
Hmm.
I've had so many experiences. I couldn't begin to tell them all, but
Mm-hmm.
I have been pulled out of my body against my will by entities,
Holy
and
crap.
yeah,
Jeez.
and what's interesting about that is that some people have reported like alien abductions,
Mm.
and their experiences almost match the typical astral projection experience, especially ones in which you are pulled out of your body
Holy
um,
cow.
spontaneously. And yeah, I've had experiences where I'm out of my body and I kind of I request some kind of entity to come to me, and sometimes it's not the entity that you want to encounter. And
Jeez.
so I always suggest to use caution and um, definitely not just open the doors to anything, because what may come to you is not what you may want.
Hmm.
Right. Right.
It's good
No,
advice.
it's not something we would mess around with. We just
Just read
our
about
curiosity
it.
lingers
Yeah.
to those areas. Yeah, we just
Yeah,
Watch
for
we
YouTube
sure.
videos about it. I'm too scared to fucking
yeah.
even. Yeah.
Yeah, same here, dude.
No, it's something that I've been curious. Like all these questions that we've been asking you, been questions that
Yeah, we were into this,
we have
man.
for a long time, and
Yeah.
to now actually speak with a professional that knows about it and does it, and even wrote a book. I mean, it's great to hear. It's like, oh wow, all these thoughts that we were kind of right, but there's so much more to it that we had no idea about, and so it was cool to learn all of that for sure.
Yeah, man, definitely.
You want to tell us a little about your book
Yeah,
and where we could get it?
definitely. Yeah, the book is called Astral Projection and Lucid Dreaming: Spiritual Revelations and Out of Body Experiences in Higher Dimensions. And you can find it on Amazon, paperback, Kindle, audiobook. And yeah, the rabbit hole, uh, it goes deep. There's a lot to learn. But I I present this material in the book, through my experiences, in more of a chronological and step-by-step fashion. So you're not just like exposed to everything at once, but it's kind of like, step by step. So, I run you through um, when I first started and my experiences and how they progressed, and also how my understanding of what's actually happening evolved over time. And I also give the techniques that I've used to induce these experiences. If you want to, you know, start your own practice, and I'm also developing producing a video series on astral projection and lucid dreaming techniques and methods. You can find those on my social media accounts on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok.
Well,
My username is
yeah.
Vincent Field Author, all one word. And I realize not everyone is able to buy the book, but I want to give this information to everyone. I, you know, Over the years, I I was always active in communities online, forums, and groups, sharing my experiences and um, just engaging with other people who are interested and want to learn this. And I decided making a book was the best way to reach the largest audience.
Hmm.
But I also realized not everyone is able to buy the book, so I'm making this video series just for everyone to kind of uh, uh, dip their feet into it and see where it leads you. So please check those videos out on my Facebook or Instagram pages.
Yeah, we'll plug those socials into our descriptions, and I'll put the link for your book as well. One final question for me, Vince. I have a lot of questions for you. Inception had totems, and those totems are supposed to remind them that they're in the dream state still. Is there any truth to that, or is it just kind of like some Hollywood BS?
That is spot on.
Hmm.
Um,
Wow.
Crazy.
it- what that is a reality check. And so what you do typically is throughout the day, you choose something which um, which sparks the question, am I dreaming or am I awake? And sometimes it'll be glancing at your hands or looking at your watch or flipping on a light switch, you know, anything.
Hmm.
Something that you do regularly throughout the day. And what happens is when you do that throughout the day, every time you do that, you ask yourself, am I dreaming? Am I awake? And then you analyze your current situation and your state of awareness. And, you decide, oh yeah, I'm awake. What happens is that this carries over into your dreams. Then you'll find yourself in a dream doing the same action and asking that question. And now you're dreaming, and now the answer is different. You're like, oh shit,
Crazy.
I'm in a dream.
Hmm.
And bam, you're lucid.
Sheesh. Don't tell
Wow,
anyone your
that's
totem.
crazy.
I was gonna ask you yours, but you're not supposed to tell anybody, right?
Yeah, I mean, something that has always worked for me is um, situations that are out of the realm of my current experience. So, for example, I live in Brazil right now. I've lived in Brazil for almost the past 10 years. So, when I have a dream and I'm not in Brazil, I'm in the United States, which is,
Hmm.
where I came from, uh, that lets me know right away, oh shit, this is a dream. I'm not in the US. And, things like that. Or
Hmm.
maybe I'm with my deceased relative, well, you kind of train yourself to discern um, currently reality with the actual physical world, and it's as simple as that. Just it takes a little practice.
Awesome. Man, love this podcast. Thanks for coming on, Vincent.
Yeah,
It was real fun.
yeah. It was,
Hey, thanks for
It
having
was,
me.
it was legit.
thanks for sharing that information, man. It's been awesome.
Vincent Fields,
Everybody,
everyone.
don't Vincent Fields. Everyone, don't forget. Check him out. Get his book if you can. If you can't, he's releasing the video series like he mentioned. Seems like he's being very genuine and just wants to release this information for everybody. So when you get a chance, check it out. Help a brother out. So yeah, for sure.
Giving you the keys. Take it easy, everyone.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
All right.
All
Thanks,
right,
guys.
everybody.
Take care.
Have a good
Later.
night.